Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Food Addiction Institute. I'm the chairman of the board of the Food Addiction Institute, and luckily today we have the vice chairman of the board. What we're doing on our series of destigmatizing food addiction is to tell stories of folks who have recovered, who have changed their life, and Esther's going to tell you her story, and I don't want to give away too much of it, but it's an interesting story to say the least. And she's got quite a few years of abstinence from sugar and flour and addictive food eating. So, Esther, go ahead, tell the folks exactly how you got started in all this, why you're doing what you're doing for a living. Just start from the beginning. I'll start wherever you'd like and tell the folks exactly about your story about food and sugar and flour and that kind of thing.
Well, thank you, Mike, for interviewing me on this subject. It's basically to start with my life story, and because as I got recovery from my food addiction and signs of eating disorder behaviors, I realized that I had been genetically predisposed to this disease. And so from very early age, I had really been craving certain foods rather than others. And my relationship with food was not healthy from very, very early age. I was a skinny kid, though, and so I wasn't fat or anything. But I'm also that old that we didn't have access to all the foods that people have today. It was more of the clean food. I'm from Iceland. We had a lot of fish and potatoes and we also all kinds of grainy foods and bakery foods but not a lot of junk food. I think I was maybe 13 or 14 when the first restaurant started bringing in French fries and stuff like that. And they, of course, immediately became my favorite. And so it wasn't really until I was getting toward teenage years that somebody said that it looked like that I was gaining weight. And what was abnormal with how I reacted to that, I think, and indicates again that there was something was not right in my head, was that I felt immediately, I took it really by heart. And I to this day, I remember the person, the place, and the time of somebody saying that to me. And it may be because I had a grandmother who was severely obese, and nobody wanted to be like grandma, and so when somebody was saying gaining weight or being even fat or something, that meant being like my grandmother, and that was not hip and cool, I tell you. Right. So it was interesting, when you look back into your story, you start seeing signs and symptoms of abnormalities that I had. More and more, I started. At that point, I didn't do much about it. When I was 16, I was working over the summer in like a fishing house, which is like fly fishing house in Iceland, which are very popular, very expensive. People would come there and fly fish, and we'd cook and take care of them. I was working there over the summer, and I maybe gained maybe 5, maybe possibly 10 pounds or so. But I felt I was severely obese, and this started my first fasting and starving. And I starved myself for a week. Somebody had told me if you just didn't eat and you'd move around, you'd lose the weight. And I did. I ran up and down the river every day. Didn't eat anything, but something very, very little, and the clothes again, fit better. But the last night when we were there, I had a eating binge, okay. And I could just not stop eating, and I just I put myself in service so I could be alone in the kitchen, and I just ate and ate and ate and ate the whole night. Wow. It was, and I didn't even remember this until really a lot later. This was really covered in my memory for the longest time, and it was a lot of shame behind remembering it, for sure. So I felt I knew I wasn't this was a big secret for me, for sure. So then this kind of started, probably eating behaviors, unhealthy eating behaviors. And I started really addressing that with becoming a health nut, and studied health foods, and I did a lot of yoga, and to learn about meditation. I did a lot of workshops on emotional sobriety and health, and I probably I probably was about the healthiest person in Iceland, and I knew everything about nutrition. I knew everything about what to eat and what not, and people would call me up and ask me things, and I know it all. Got all the books about it and tried it all, and for a while I did get some success, but what I noticed was that I would have the period of restricting my food intake because I felt I had gained weight, and I had, and then I'd lose it, and that I would start eating, and I would gain again. And so this became a cycle for me. And it became worse and worse when I was a young mother. I had 3 kids pretty early on in my life, and I gained a lot of weight around that. And there were absolutely certain foods coming in that I would crave more than others. I was not really a sugar addict at this point, which is interesting. I was more of a, and I would literally grind my own wheat and bake my own bread, and Yeah. And I would make jam out of honey and fruit and stuff. And, it was just health. But still it didn't, I was still having the same problem in spite of all the healthiness, all the health foods. And I wasn't eating Snickers, I just wasn't. But I would really start finding my stuff within the health food. This is kind of something that was valuable for me, as I started working with others with food addiction, is that I thought if you were eating healthy foods, you'd be okay. But that was not the case with me, because I had something more wrong with me than imbalance because of unhealthy food intake at this point. And so what happened was that the weight started escalating. I had more hard times getting the weight off, and I would continuously start gaining more and more weight. And I had the way to lose the weight was a lot of it was starving myself or eating very little, a lot of exercise, and I would have a lot of success in all of that. I'm a very strong-willed person, and so I don't know, I don't know how much weight I've lost over the years in diets, but it's something humongous. It's probably more than 3 people or something that I've lost in weight.
Right.
Because I was so successful in dieting. And then, but slowly but surely, I stopped being successful. And at one point, specifically after like a really, really big starving period, I had like more than 3 months that I ate only 1 meal a week.
Really?
1 meal a week. And
wow.
I was just going to lose the weight. I was in university studying to be an opera singer. I was coming home to Iceland. I was going to do my debut recital, and I was going to look okay for sure. And so I did. And I lost the weight, and I came home, and I started eating. And in the spring, I think I lost in the months, that's about 40 kilos. That's probably about 80 pounds or so. Wow. In the spring, after about 6 months, I had gained like 100 and probably 20 pounds.
Whoa.
So that's what was happening to me, you know. And after this, I was I wasn't really able to diet anymore. I was just starting to eat more and more, and I would wake up in the morning. The first thing that I was thinking was, you know, what am I going to have? And then I had that, and then I was immediately starting to think about what was I going to have next, and when I could have something next. And these became my days. So I think eventually. I had become very, very sick in this disease, and it was really, I had become severely overweight, and I could not, for the life of me, do anything about it. I remember the last diet that I did was Atkins. It's kind of a low-carb diet, and it was actually worked great. I thought, wow, now I really got it. And I think I got like 2 months of it, and I loved being able to use a lot of fat and cream and all of that stuff, and I kind of liked it, and I went into the ketogenic fasting and all of that, what you guys do. And then we have in Iceland a specific day that we eat a specific bakery ball, or I don't know what muffin or something. And then it's a traditional day. And I thought, well, I can do that for the, I'm going to buy some if some guests come. And then I thought, well, no guests came. So I was thinking, okay, I'll have one. And I when I remember this time, I remember having the first one, and I remember having the second, and I had bought 10 of those. And then I didn't remember eating anymore. I total blackout. Wow. And I just woke up the day after, and I realized that there was nobody there to eat it except me, so I must have eaten it. And for 3 years, I could not save myself from eating for the life of me. I was just eating and eating and eating. And I had really tried to find help. I tried 12-step programs, all kinds of diets, all kinds of, if there was a book published in Timbuktu, I'd get it if it was about diet or anything. And I try it out, and I have some of those books still up in my bookshelves, and just for the history of the whole thing. I was lucky enough to get a book on in the bookshop about food addiction, and it was even on my table for maybe a couple of months before I'd read it, because I had lost all hope that there would be anything I could do. Nothing that I had done had ever worked for me. So I was totally depressed, and I sincerely wanted to die. I was 48 years old, and I felt 60 something, which was very high age. Now I'm 60 something, and I feel 48. You know,
right, exactly.
It is very different. And so I felt old, and I couldn't see my life evolving, and I wanted just to die. I sincerely was there, and I couldn't see anything coming up. What happened was that I read in the book about a man who had gotten recovery from similar existence as I, and it was through 12 steps. And so I decided to go to a meeting again, in spite of me trying to go, and it never really worked. And as a result of that, I was guided to another 12-step fellowships for food addicts. And in that fellowship, there was really strict guidelines on what I could eat and what not. And I learned to weigh and measure my food, and get the support, daily support and sponsorship on a daily basis. And that saved my life. And enough foods were taken out, so and the formality of the, you know, I had like certain amounts of like 3 weighed and measured meals a day, and of course, you know, I had crawled in there, and when I saw the food plan, I knew much better about what to do, and you know, it was like, immediately, you know, what are you guys making me do here? And so they very kindly, my distance folks, said, you know, Esther, you don't have to do this, but maybe you want to try for like a week and see what happens with it. And I'm so fortunate that I did. I thought, well, nothing that I've done has worked. It looks like it works for them. And I can tell you, the first time I went to this meeting, it was the first time in my life that I saw people and heard people that had the same disease as I, or same symptoms as I, let's say it like that. And they had some kind of recovery. It was not only that they were in appropriate goal weight. There was something different about their eyes, about how they were laughing and having fun, and I didn't really think there was no fun around this for me. So I didn't feel like laughing in my first meeting, I tell you. But so I did, and I did decide to do this. So there was a decision that came in there, and I decided to do this for a week. And in the first 24 hours, basically, something really happened with me. You know, it was like my mental obsession about the food, what to have, what not to have, the craving, all of this left. And it's never returned.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and it is almost 17 years.
Nice.
So something about really, you know, I know that maybe not everybody needs to be on a program like I am, but I sincerely do need it. And I take, of course, out all sugars and starches and a lot of other different foods that may or may not trigger my pleasure centers here. And I surrender to it. I just surrender to this as being something that has really saved my life, and not only saved my life, but giving me a life, because I had none before. I had lost it. I totally lost it. And but now, since then, I of course, no treatment for food addiction at that point that I knew of. I started trying to find some. But I really dove into the treatment of the 12-step programs. And that was a real eye-opener for me. And because it not only helped me with my abstinence, how I needed to do my abstinence, but it also helped me to understand the part of the mental obsession, and the part of the emotional part, the self-pity, the resentment and the fears, all of these emotions that continuously took me back to eating and were in the forefront of me. And I really learned and got ways of dealing with my life in a new way, and got serenity. And I got humbled and humble. Humble about myself, humble about other people, and about my disease, and so grateful for the gift of life that I had been given. And as a result of that, I really had from that time, a very strong passion to help other people get recovery from this disease. It was killing me. I've seen a lot of people die from this disease in my family, with friends, with people where, a lot of people in my work. I've worked like for 14 years now in the field. And so it's a sad story. And my passion has been to really get the word out there and to help and assist develop treatments. Because I think that if there had been a treatment for my disease, I think I may have gotten recovery much earlier, because I was really out there looking for years and years and years, but there wasn't really anything out there for this. I don't know, but I sincerely wanted to create that, and I did here in Iceland. I created a treatment center. I studied addiction counseling and addiction supervision, and did my master's in managing health services, and started a treatment center here, outpatient treatment center. And we have, in those years, treated about 3,000 people in Iceland. And that's a large portion of Icelandic nation, because, we have probably about 5 people around each person. And it really has had a lot of effect here in Iceland. And we've had a lot of conferences now on food addiction here. So there is much more awareness here than it used to be, and the 12-step programs have really grown and benefited in many ways from there being a treatment. It's the same as what happened with alcoholism in the old days. And alcoholics and treatment that started happening after the big book came out, and the 12 steps started being a base of recovery for people. The recovered alcoholics started treatment, and as a result of that, a lot of people got some kind of a buffer to go to, that might never have gone to the 12-step programs. They got treatment, so they got understanding and acceptance of the kind of recovery that these programs really can give us. And so that's basically where I'm at. I am.
That's an amazing story. It really is. And thank you for sharing it. So tell the folks, when you first walked into your first meeting, and then, you took it, adhered to the principles, did you lose some weight, fall to a right-sized body? I know it's not as pressing sometimes for people in the industry, but new people always seem to, you know the saying, come for the vanity, stay for the sanity, right?
Absolutely.
People are always very curious about, does it work for weight loss? Because that's their first thought. And
yes,
did it work for you? And were there other health benefits?
Well, for sure. And I was 60 kilos overweight, which is probably about like 130 pounds. Wow. And so I took me maybe a year and a half to lose that. It went up steadily and surely, and since then I'm just always the same weight, and always goal weight. I'm in a healthy weight. I'm not too thin. I'm regular weight, and the health, with my health, of course, the depression just left. That's basically, I think, that was what was killing me, the depression. And I understand and I know now that the foods are a big contributor to that. And I see that with my clients, that is one of the first things that they notice, that their depression leaves when we change our diets and lifestyles as we've done.
Now, when you say leaves, did you have to do work around that? Were there issues of old stuff or stuff that you had to clear out, or were there new self-care processes? What did it just evaporate, and was it a result of the food or the substance itself, or did you find you had to do some other work and maybe rewire your brain, or how did that work? Tell me about that. I think that's an important thing for folks. One of the most important, I believe, benefits is exactly that people realize in, a couple years or a year in or so, they didn't realize they could feel so good. And some folks are not even overweight. So I have Olympic athletes and runners, and they're not overweight, but they had depression or mental health issues, and that went away after the substances went away. So tell us a little bit about that, or what your thoughts are on that. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. The abstinence and taking out these foods are essential. Mm-hmm. And so they're the base, and I think that needs to happen in order for your brain to be cleared and for the craving to stop. Because when the craving is there, which is manufactured by the foods, you're just occupied with the craving, and you lose the control of yourself in every way, at least at some point. And so when I think it's a combination of doing that and getting help with getting the right kind of abstinence plan. And the abstinence plan needs to be a lifelong plan. It can't be another diet. Right. It has to be something that satisfies, is comfortable, it gives you satiety, you cannot be hungry for sure, and that you lose the weight. And I never thought, with all the food I was supposed to eat, that I would ever lose the weight, but I did. And it was the first time that I had a lot to eat, which was so comforting for me. I didn't have to starve myself anymore. I never felt hungry since, I started this. So,
well, I think in your work, that everyone always asks the question about flour and sugar. Do I have to do this for the rest of my life? And it's so daunting for people. It's not daunting for someone like you or I who've already done it and how well we feel looking back, but looking forward after you spent a lifetime in this society to not have those two products. How do you handle that with your folks? How do you tell or help folks over that kind of thought process?
Well, fortunately, if they just get abstinent and get detoxed, they don't crave it anymore.
Right.
If I was craving having those foods again and again, I don't think I'd be able to stay away from them. Right. So that's the magic of the program, and the program of recovery, which is then when you've taken the foods out, the craving is gone. To have some kind of a life-changing ways, you need to change. If your life needs to change in many ways, if this permanent, or if you're going to maintain this kind of lifestyle, and that's where I think, for me, of course, I'm very, very strong in the recovery of the 12-step programs, because there's such a simple way of just dealing with that part. It's helping to understand really the basic of what's wrong with us, that when the craving is there, we get compulsive and we can't stop eating or behaving or what, and we need to get that out of the way. And then we need to start connecting to our self, to our reality, to go from get from the head and the obsessive thoughts and into the body, deal with the emotions, learn new ways to deal with the emotions. Because when we have become addicts, that's the one thing that happens, is that our emotional maturity stops. And with food addicts, it stops at a very early age usually. Kids, people, I think, become at least early stage food addicts at very early age. And I say, and I know a lot of my colleagues talk about it when we diagnose people, that we see that they have become even maybe food addicts before they became alcoholics or started, any other hard drugs, and then they stop that, and then the food comes back.
Right, exactly.
So when since I'm in the treatment for this, I think, when you're treating people with alcoholism and drug use and stuff, you're dealing with a teenager,
Yeah.
You can have a maybe 30, 40, 50-year-old person, but emotionally that person has stopped developing around the time that they started using the substance.
Correct.
So when we stop eating the foods, we may meet our child selves, our teenage selves, the inner child, pretty much, and that's where we approach life as maybe a 10-year-old. All of a sudden, we just behave like a 10-year-old instead of like a grown-up, and we need to kind of grow ourselves up in that aspect, and that's part of what I talk about a lot with people. So what kind of tools do I need to deal with my emotions, whatever comes up so I can deal with life on life's terms? That's what we need to learn, whatever way we do that. And as we do, we will clear all the wreckage of the past. We will have to work properly through family issues, different issues around. Some have had trauma and abuse in their lives, and that will have some effect, and we need to work through that and take time for such things specifically as well. But it is more just really learning to deal with life one day at a time.
And so where does this come in? I mean, this is, to me, an important topic, and one that is very difficult to explain, or even, maybe I'll ask you, should you even try to explain it before people are abstinent? In other words, like, I agree with you 100% about the immaturity part and the substances, and for sure the food being first, even if they go into drugs and alcohol. A great majority of my clients are recovering folks who went back to the food and couldn't put it down. They could put down heroin, for God's sakes. They could put down alcohol, but they're having a difficult time putting the sugar and the flour down. Yes. So tell me about when in the process do you introduce this idea? Okay, so and in other words, how long before they're abstinent, and then, like, if something starts to come up, how do you explain it to them? This, I think, is the golden key to the golden lock. If people could understand that they have been manipulating their dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA, oxytocin, their emotional reward centers in their brain with this substance, and that has affected, like you said, their view of the world and how they deal with the world, what their level of maturity and their emotional growth is. where do you bring this in? When does this happen? In other words, like, how long have they been off flour and sugar? How long before, like, maybe some emotional stuff comes up about trauma? Can you go into that just a little bit? Because I think folks are, first of all, scared of it, because I think they've maybe experienced a little of it in glimpses, like a movie trailer, but now they're going to be dropped completely into it after they don't have their flour and sugar or food misuse. So can you tell the folks a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. And oops, my dog is barking here.
He liked my question.
Yeah. He's getting her here. She wants to join the conversation about this. Well, what I want to say with that, in regards with that, is of course it kind of depends on the severity of the disease, and it's also, but my experience is that and this is why I want to see people get real support and help when they're detoxing and going through withdrawals. Okay. There are usually severe withdrawals from sugar and flour, and specifically if they take out more of the substances that may trigger the pleasure centers. And but the withdrawal that is probably most surprising for people is the emotional part. And it's that they become weepy, emotional, even angry. A lot of anger, irritation comes up, and I usually say to people, because I have like a weekend seminar for people, because I haven't really had opportunity to have inpatient treatment here yet. But I try to have them as much as possible for at least a week on a daily basis. I have people have support because of the emotions that come up, how they feel, and so that they have somebody to confide and talk about that issue with, you see. And so I immediately address the emotional part, because that's exactly what starts coming up first and foremost. And so I try to help people understand that it is natural for them to start feeling their feelings, because they've been suppressing their feelings with their substance. When they stop it, they don't have anything. And so what are we going to do with it? And what I talk about usually is that we need to learn to feel our feelings and be willing to do that. And it's not just dwelling in horrible feelings all day long for 15 years. It's not that way. People get the experience of give them simple ways of like writing down their emotions. That's a very functional way of starting to define what's happening. And they when they write them down, they're doing something with it. And it helps them kind of get the feelings up into the surface more. And as they start doing stuff like this, it's a lot more can be done, of course. You know, they understand that feeling the feelings isn't maybe so bad. And the feeling just comes and it goes. So they start, you know, slowly but surely understanding those things and start dealing with it. But I feel that people that are going through this kind of withdrawals should and need to have support, a lot of support. Right. Well, because you know they only know to eat. Right. And if they don't get any support and any you know ways of dealing with this, they'll just go back to eating.
Right. That's always been their go-to. So how do you get, I mean, I don't want to say forced, but how folks are really reticent. They're really nervous about calling someone or logging online or whatever, even going to a meeting, they don't want to do it. I mean, they've had this system that they've used for 30, 40 years, 20, 30, 40 years. And what, like you said, it's to eat. They think about it. And a lot of times it's been an unconscious management system that they don't understand. So how do you get them to understand that this is an important part, that they have to reach out, that they have to talk with someone else, that they have to get with someone who's been there before, so that they can, not feel crazy, because, likely someone in their family or at work is not going to understand what the heck they're talking about. They're just going to tell them to have a cookie,
Yeah.
So how do you
have a cookie?
so how do you get them to understand this in a deep way, and what kind of I don't want to say track record, but is there a percentage of people that just don't get it? They don't want to get it, or I don't know. You understand the question?
Yeah, of course there is, but in treatment, part of the benefits of having treatment is that the people that come in are willing to do with a professional. They trust you as a professional, hopefully, and you have assignments for them to do. Okay. And so one of the assignments.
So there is a structured way out of this.
Oh, absolutely. And the treatment, in my opinion, and my experience, yes, is that you teach people to do what works. And so you have assignments on a daily basis on what are you going to do in order to support your abstinence today and to recover. And so they start doing that slowly but surely, and kind of one step of the time at a time, and you kind of guide them on. You start with some assignments, and then you add on to them as they start understanding the nature of the disease, because through doing they understand. If you would just be lecturing all the time, it just goes by, and they say, "Oh, this was a great lecture," but then they don't remember it. Yeah. But if you have them do assignments and share assignments with each other, for example, that is for me the biggest eye opener for people in treatment, and the possibility of treatment facilitators to be able to do that. It's probably about the best result is when you get people together in a treatment group, sharing about their disease, their secrets about what they do around the food, what they ate, and all of a sudden they experience being in a group of their kind of people. They are not alone anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that is about, probably, because this is a disease of isolation. You don't think anybody feels the way you do, but then you're all of a sudden in a group of people that do. And they even laugh at the same, I do that. And, it's something horrible, like eating from the garbage or something. And, all of a sudden people are really there with you. Yeah. And I remember that. Yeah. And that's where the healing starts happening. And the guide and the willingness to continue to go into that kind of support and program starts happening by itself. Nice. So treatment, I think, is essential for food addiction, and that's why I'm so intimate, or what do you say?
Gung-ho.
Yeah. I just really press on for that, and of course with INFACT, the school, it's really the first school which teaches these principles, And these principles is nothing that, you know, I invented. It's the base of how we deal with substance abuse, with any kind of addiction. It's based on what works for addiction. And then, of course, we add on to what's specific about food addiction, sugar addiction, and or volume eating, or any other kind of eating disorders that may come in there as well, you know. But there are ways to deal with this, for sure.
So, in fact, give me your URL, your information. We got to wrap this up, sadly. Oh, you and I know, could talk forever. We have talked forever about this stuff, but we want to get this out to as many people as we can so that they can, like you said, not feel alone, and maybe a lot of the things you said will resonate with them and get them to take action. So tell them where they can find you, or where your online places are and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, since I work in Iceland, I have, of course, the MFM treatment center here in Iceland, but that's all in Icelandic, you know, so not many will want to go there. Okay. But there is the INFACT school. It's INFACT, INFACT.is. Okay. And that's there. You get information on the school and the program there, and
you train both the general public as someone wants to recover, and then you train educators who want to go back to their homes and teach this, right?
Yeah, it's basically mostly for professionals that want to add on to their knowledge on food addiction. Okay. And addiction counseling. And it is also, some people have come there for their own benefit, and that's fine, but it's not a treatment per se, but they learn about treatment, and then they maybe know more about where to get that, you know.
Gotcha. Okay. No, excellent. No, I mean, we have a lot of professionals that watch these videos and come to the website trying to figure out more information for their practice. So this is awesome. Yeah. All righty. I will call it a day here and sign off. But Esther, I want to thank you very, very much for this. This is awesome. We'll get this out on social media in the next couple of days and up on the website. So I really appreciate your time and your honesty and humility to tell your story. I think it's important that people, to break the stigma of this disease, or break the stigma of, some people are not ready to call it a disease, but I think the more people that talk about it openly, the more open people get to hearing the answer for them. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, the same, Mike. I really appreciate you doing this.
All righty, you take care, and we will we'll talk real soon. Bye for now.
Absolutely.